Welcome to the Healthier Tech Podcast, the show about building a healthier relationship with modern technology. Now here are your hosts, R. Blank and Stephanie Warner.
Today, we have Thomas Helfrich, the founder and CEO of Instantly Relevant, a company focused on creating marketing and lead generation specifically for passionate founders, ambitious entrepreneurs, and pioneering startups in growth mode. Thomas also hosts AI Nerd, AI with Attitude, a platform to inspire the creation of authentic content focused on artificial intelligence. Welcome, Thomas, to the Healthier Tech Podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate the intro.
Yeah.
I do.
Oh,
very nice.
I appreciate
I hope I didn't write that. If I did, I need to go revisit my writing skills.
So I'm really you had me on your podcast last year, and it was a really fun talk. And I was really happy to get the chance to invite you back over here, not only to repay the favor, but to talk a bit about this thing that we hear about occasionally now called artificial intelligence. It seems like things. I mean, obviously, what we're hearing about in the news now has been worked on for many, many years, but it does feel like there's some sort of tipping point, at least in terms of the consumer facing side. So I think it's a great time to have this conversation. So just to start us off, I mean, how would you define AI to an average person?
Well, jokingly, AI or artificial intelligence is everything we can't do in technology yet. But in reality, it is not Skynet and the whole thing. It kind of goes there, but it's complex technologies that are doing things around machine learning, data science, and learning from that at a machine level to accelerate what we do today. In some of I think probably the latest one that's come out, it's been out for a while, but it's ChatGPT 3, where you can just pretty much talk to it. That's, we've at Instantly Relevant been doing this for a few years now with OpenAI. We've had the beta access for a long time to that playground. And
ChatGPT is a project of OpenAI, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
In the playground, you can just kind of interact with it. And what's been cool about it is the mechanism of how they deliver, where you can just speak to it. And you can do anything from write an article. And I'll tell you about a funny one I wrote the other day just to see what it would do. But I've seen an AI model get made from talking to it. Or apps. So it's a good step forward for AI. But generally, by the way, AI is just artificial intelligence. It's just a lot of systems and technologies working together to do some things that humans couldn't do at the speed it can do.
Okay. And I want to get back to that because you mentioned ChatGPT, and as you said, there's a lot of coverage on that right now. But before we do, how did you actually become an AI or the AI nerd?
I bought AInerd.com for like $800. I was like, I guess I gotta own it. I've had a feeling. I mean, there's some truth to that, but I've always had this. I've always been in the business technology zone from a consultative side. So using advanced or interesting technologies to automate, to accelerate, to digitize. And AI is kind of in that journey, if you will, in the last 10 years or so, specifically around intelligent automation and AI innovation systems, where you're leveraging these technologies to, in my opinion, accelerate a human by the right technology in the right moment at the right time, to advance the person forward, not replace them. Because ultimately, some jobs are lost with these technologies, right? But tons more are going to be created. So,
really,
that's the background on it.
That you think there's. Because I often read about AI being an example of how technology is going to displace labor, especially when you combine it with things like robotics. You think there's going to be a constant flow of new human employment, even as these advances?
Absolutely, yeah. It raises the level. I mean, the nature of some work will change, right? So just as if we still have horses, but when cars came along, there was needed things around horses, taking care of them, right? That became a luxury item, if you will. Which is an interesting parallel to draw with creating content, which in the future will be when people just write it only without, it'll probably have higher value than just AI ones. But what happens, right, is as technology forms, it gets rid of the higher volume, repetitive types of jobs, and it replaces them with a whole bunch of higher value jobs, which is what advances technology forward itself. So It's going to create more jobs because it's because the power and what the availability will do, it'll just create more opportunities and more knowledge and new things. And that creates a whole new set of things to do.
So where are we in, getting back to ChatGPT, which I know is just one of these projects. It's just one that garnered a tremendous amount of attention. But where are we sort of on this path to the singularity?
Mm-hmm. I think we're quite nascent still. I think, this stuff, the algorithms and things that are being used are, from decades ago, and it's just getting faster and more powerful. But I think the intelligence piece of artificial intelligence is the human still. I think the human-led piece of that and how you interact with it is where the power really is. And that singularity is just socially, it's going to happen, but I don't think it's going to happen in any of our lifetimes. I think it's
really
many years out still. I just think the AI is very good for narrow use cases and deep use cases. It's getting better and more broad, but humans are still at the front of that. I mean, I think maybe like a cool area to look at, like in healthcare, right? I think in a decade or so, maybe more, maybe two, because it moves slow. I believe doctors today don't use AI day-to-day in interactions for wellness or for prevention. They maybe a little bit here and there, but I think if you fast forward a couple of decades, it'll be probably deemed negligent if you're not. And so if you're not using AI to look at scans or your data and or your metrics, if you will, of your body, then that would be like, hey, you should be, because it's going to be required. So I think that'll be a shift, and that's a piece. But even then, there's still humans led. So singularity. I mean, there's more and more things going on, right, with like contacts and ear implants and all this other stuff. And given what you do, I'm sure you'd love to hear about implants of technology. But I mean, you slap some, new lenses on my eyes, and I got night vision, and I can focus in. I might have to sign up for that one. That'd be kind of fun, right? Like to be able to improve your vision, and that stuff's happening. So,
what about invisibility?
I just don't think we're that close.
I'd like invisibility. Can you get me invisibility?
Right.
You can. You just got to move to Panama and not use credit cards or be online. So, do this.
Oh, wielding the metaphor very powerfully. So you talk about these kind of deep applications or repetitive applications, and that's where we are right now. Can you give us some examples from your client work at Instantly Relevant? Obviously, you don't have to go into anything specific with specific clients, but like, what are the types of applications that you find are adding value for your clients now?
Well, I mean, from the marketing standpoint, maybe not looking at the companies we're serving their applications specifically or their services are, but what things we are doing that are really helping us, even in this interview, right? Like I had my note taker join, my video note taker join. When we get done with this, there's these, there's things like Zapier that goes and connects it to Calendly, that gets connected to the MailChimp, it gets go to a pipe drive, so your CRM and your mail list builder. And then if, we have this interview and I have a transcript of it, I can write an article off of it in minutes, right? I can actually upload it to ChatGPT-3 or ChatGPT.
It's a horrible name. It's a really horrible name.
General predictive, text, but
I know it stands for something. And
I
it's
say
-3
because it's actually the DaVinci 3 model that they're using. But you can upload that, and I can say, hey, summarize the most 3 important points of this entire interview, and it'll do it for me. It'll just write it for us. And so from your social media pieces, so there's all those simple things like even Grammarly, or like using some things on SEO and trying to write better content. It's all being used at the right moments for any of our customers. But some of the biggest technologies aren't even really AI. It's like Calendly. It's just the Google suite of tools you can use that are still there. And when you combine it all together, you can really do a lot more faster with less people.
So is AI sort of what we call AI? Is that sort of just like just at a certain level of complexity, it's AI, and beneath it, it's just kind of mechanical?
Well, for true AI, I mean, you have to have a bunch of data and pretty good data. You need it for it to be considered. It really needs to be learning, because it's in self-learning to some degree, or at least trains. And so it's to do this, it has to, you're talking about incredible compute and other pieces. I think AI is kind of thrown a little loosely, where it might be using a component of some kind of machine learning or some component of some other AI. But true AI companies that are doing the big stuff, they're getting more of them, but I think it's just in small snippets. But for AI to really work, to be fair, you need a narrow and deep use case. So solving, reading cancer screens on a an X-ray for this specific cancer, it needs to be narrow and deep so the technology can be trained. And that's where some of these AI pieces get a little bit wishy-washy when people are doing AI. It's not quite that. It's just analytics, maybe.
In the reference, so I'm excited about ChatGPT because it's the place where I see for myself and my workflow, like I see the way, like how I can be much more streamlined, much more efficient. I can do more, like the things in my mind can get done because I don't have to be the person doing them. And you just brought up a really good point that the term AI does kind of get thrown around a lot, but there's that machine learning element. And I think, so my question is, using ChatGPT as an example, how does the machine learning differentiate AI from, like you brought up Calendly, you brought up Google Drive and Docs and all of those other types of programs?
Well, I mean, okay, so for something to be AI, it needs to have some machine learning and data. I mean, just at the very basic, I'm oversimplifying it just so anybody's out there going, he's wrong. I'm oversimplifying it for a piece, but you need some type of machine learning and a lot of data, and you need a use case that applies to be trained to learn towards. The idea, biggest classic, thing is this a softball or is this a basketball? And you show it images, right? And then eventually it can identify that these are softballs, right? With Calendar, something like that, there's no real AI. It's not making any reference, like it's not doing things and learning. They're collecting a lot of data about you, which might be sold into an AI company to sell you things or back to ad engines, but they're not specifically doing AI. If you're in ChatGPT, you type whatever you look or you're trying to do, that whole model is learning from what you're doing, interacting with it. So as everybody interacts with it, the model is going to get better because it's learning what the feedback was. So that's true AI, probably one of the best, most tangible examples of it right now.
So talking about this learning and machine learning being a defining characteristic of artificial intelligence, one of the things I often read about with AI is that biases are being encoded into these systems. And that they learn, for instance, to differentiate based off of race or gender or other physical and non-physical characteristics in ways that we might say are unjust or unfair. Can you? I mean, are you aware of the types of issues that I'm talking? Yeah. So, what do you think implementers could be doing differently to try to address these issues?
It comes down to explainability and traceability of the decisions the technology is making. There's a very cool company called Rainbird.ai that does AI inference engines. So it's decision making with at incredible power levels. Like, can you detect risk and fraud across an entire organization leveraging these models, or assessing risk for, I think they did for the National Health Services during COVID. And so they do, I mean, it's incredible power, to the point of where even you could do phone conversations, right? And it would take this stuff in real time and make decisions on the conversation of what to give the agent to say, hey, this is probably what they're talking about. This is what they need, just based on the conversation. But their models are explainable. They can show the path of why that was chosen by a percentage or by the probability or whatever it would be. And that's where, if you're not have the ability to explain and show traceability of your data, and have the explainability of how decisions are recommended or made, then you have a challenge. What will happen sometimes, right, with the data is that, because humans are involved, there are biases. There are things that are, in there. And so when they're leveraging data that was already predetermined from, let's say, human interactions, then that's when you get, like if you have a group of people giving mortgages out and they predominantly only give it to a certain race or demographic, and you're using that to train a model, your model is going to follow back to that data. So, and then that's where the explainability, and that's where you can identify, though, it's one of the powerful things you can do is like, hey, we tend to serve one market and underserve another for no other reason, it seems, except for these two, things. Maybe causality is not, causation, and I can't think right now. I stopped drinking coffee 2 weeks ago, and no AI told me that was going to be as bad as it was. But the point is, it's in there, and that's a big piece. And there's a lot of groups that are trying to really fight that from today. So, talk about healthier tech. This, this is really important, right? Because having bias in medical, or having bias in your lending or in your credit pieces like this, or a number of other things too, of acceptance to college even, that affects people's lives. And you have to, there needs to be some type of fairness. Now, what's fair in the West might not be the same fairness in the Middle East or in South Africa or wherever else, right? So who determines that? So, that's part of the challenge.
Is this like an actively debated and actively kind of managed set of concerns, or is it not getting enough spotlight?
It's probably not getting enough spotlight, but it is actively being concerned. But people are, organizations are building these technologies as fast as they can to, gain share, just chase money, right? But I think some of the good applications where you want to go faster, maybe for more, global, what do you call it, climate control, things like that, geopolitical things. That's where you might really want to have some explainability to say, when they're with the geo level. So is the data you're using really, can you explain it to say that, yes, there is climate change or is not? Can you really say that if we do this, do we not do it just to influence a set of countries or a region of the world? That kind of leveraging of AI is a bit scary. There's things called, it's like, you basically can just take over a whole topic with AI. So AI can go out and disseminate so much information to influence a certain group. It's narrative manipulation is what it's called. And you could do this, and there are companies that do this for 3-letter agencies in the US, right? They when they need a kind of influence and propaganda, they leverage these technologies.
I thought you said we were pretty far away from Skynet. It sounds like.
Well, no, but Skynet's for the road. Humans are still hitting the button on that one.
Okay. So it's as evil as Skynet. It's just not as efficient.
I think.
So getting
we're all on a list now. We're all on a list.
Getting quickly back to ChatGPT, I don't know, maybe Steph has more questions on this, but this will be my last one. I was reading, again, another article about it because it's been covered so darn much, that the inventor of Gmail said it has the potential to put Google out of business within 2 years. And one is, do you think that even is possibly true? And two, what makes it such an important thing that's gotten all of this attention?
Ease of use. I mean, the fact that you can interact with it and ask it all kinds of questions. Now that's moving towards general AI. So there's AI, which is very narrow and deep for use case. General AI is what we would think is Skynet. Like they can do anything. You can ask anything. It's Jarvis, right? It's all that. It's the ease of use to just interact with it like you're chatting with a human. That's why it's getting so much thing. And then most people didn't realize how cool it could be. And now it's doing that. I don't know if it could put Google out of business. The fact that Microsoft's put, several tens of billions, I think, behind it now is helpful. But I think that's a bit of positioning, if you will, in the market from the people who own it. To say it that way.
That's funny. Think back to when we were growing.
You'll go there for search, but Google owns a lot of the mechanics of search. They're still going to have to interact. It's just in Google or ABC. I'm not sure which one we're talking about there, but anyway.
Back when we were growing up, did you ever think you'd be living in the day where you'd be rooting for Microsoft as the underdog?
I was still kind of hoping they would not have sold that to them. Hey, as long as it's in my PowerPoint, I'm fine, right? My Excel books.
So you see amazing benefits of technology in businesses daily. Do you also see any downside where technology might hold business back?
Yeah. When people become so dependent on it, they stop using their own creativity. I think that's the disaster right there. If you're just so dependent on the technology all the time and you're not leveraging the smart, like the quantum computer that does exist, our brains, right? And if you stop, for me, everything still needs to be human led. There's still the reason you do anything is because there's humans involved, and that might not serve for everything in every industry, but it's pretty much, everything, right? And so I think that's when you forget about the human in the equation, then you're on the path to destruction, if you will.
Well, and just complacency. And so again, I love ChatGPT, but I still have to fact check what it says. And I'm sure it will get to a place where that may not be as important, but I still have to do it
You
It's
should be
still
doing that
like,
with humans too, though.
well, exactly. And I think there's going to be some healthy hesitation to overutilize, and then I think there's going to be this overutilization and then a correction of like, okay, well, we still need to know how to do, we still need to know that 1 + 1 = 2, because the calculator could break, or it could inherently learn bias that we don't want to inject into our content or whatever it is that we're doing.
Yeah, I'm also wondering about, I mean, because I mean, you talk about these big data sets, and I understand why that's so important for AI, but at some level, the human, as you say, has to be involved. And I'm wondering if this fosters analysis paralysis, this bias towards growing and consuming as much data as possible, or is that not relevant because the computer's handling that part of it?
I mean, you need as much data as possible, period, to get these things, because because of the training of it. And that's like, it goes back to the explainability and the traceability of the data and the decision it's making. But you do need incredible amounts of data. That's why the narrow and deep use cases are good, because the data is very clean. Yet you have to have that, mapped correctly and ontology of that all done well so it can understand it. But as it gets more powerful, right, more unstructured data, more inputs that are from all sorts of, IoT, whatever else, right? That's happening, but it just still needs to be around what is it problem is it solving? And that's why I go back to the ChatGPT. It's GPT. It's why it's so, the thing is you can ask it, I have a funny story I asked it, right? I'll read it to you off air later about it.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. Okay, cool. So I understand that you are writing a book. Yeah.
I am, and I'm writing.
Are you able to share
by talking to myself in Zoom, because I cannot write. I try it. I'm like, just.
Yeah.
Are you writing it? Is our favorite application that we've mentioned a million times writing it?
No, I'm actually writing it. It's called Never Been Promoted. It's actually I'll have a podcast start here shortly. Hence the studio setup here. But it's really about, I've never been promoted in ever. So, and I think there's a lot of people like me who just have not been super happy in a W-2 type of environment. It's not that it's bad. It's just, I just felt like I never got promoted in life. Like you got the car and house and kids and wife, but you're kind of like, just something's missing. And what I feel is this is an entrepreneur inside many of us, and you don't know how to get it out. You don't know how to do a side hustle. You don't know how to leverage your employment or your W-2 income to be happier in your work. And when you do that, the idea is that you can kind of break free of what you think you're wasting your time. And when you think of your W-2 maybe as a revenue generator for your other job that you're starting, or you just get more happiness because you have passion about something that fills the time. The whole idea behind that, though, is kind of taking a how-to of how you do it, what you're going to feel, the roller coaster of emotions you're going to have, and really help the person kind of going through that, think through what they could do and what they could do next. I mean, the idea is really to make so you don't have to assign your worth to your career, your W-2, and so you don't have this. Especially, I mean, I'm sure women do this too, but I can only speak for men. I know many men attach so much of their value to their jobs and their careers, but they're just miserable because they don't know what else they would do. There's a million things they'd rather go do. They just can't think their way through it. So it's about that. It will not help you get promoted. Likely it'll get you let go if you follow it, which would be my path most of the time.
It's your answer to Dale Carnegie.
How
to lose status and reduce your income. Yeah.
I mean, but that's the idea, is that it's I'm still forming it and still in the middle of just even trying to get like the intro and first chapters done. But it's in my head for a long time of what to do.
Cool. So yeah, I was going to ask if you had an ETA, but it sounds like maybe not quite yet.
It'll be this year. My publisher's beating me up weekly, going, "Hey, you got something."
Cool.
It sounds inspirational. It sounds like I love the topic, and anything that frees people's mind to, especially like figure out how to pursue a passion or realize that you're more free than you think you are. And that's what I took out of the description you were giving.
I think you felt me, categorize it for the podcast too, which is entrepreneurial, motivational, inspirational. but the idea is like, right, like an entrepreneur is like, people don't realize this. And I know you know this, guys, because you are entrepreneurs, that, you wake up, you're ready to go. You couldn't sleep because of 50, invoicing this, that. I got to go find customers, get a cup of coffee, kids are out the door, you're doing your thing. oh, wow, things are going great. A minute later, you're like, oh, screw this. I'm going to go apply for a job. You apply for 5 jobs. Next thing you know, you're playing games. You're like, I got to get back in it. I get back in it. You're working. Oh my God, I need a nap. I take a nap. I get up. I have another coffee, and it's 11 a.m. And and that's day one. And then you can repeat that on the afternoon, the evening, and then every day after. And there's no such thing as a Saturday or Sunday. And so it's like you're going to have an emotional roller coaster. And I think knowing how to deal with that and balance your life out a bit will be important.
That's super cool. That's super cool. Is there something, because obviously we're lay people, and when it comes to topics like AI, is there something that you would like us to ask you, or that you think that we missed when it comes to just giving some kind of top level insight to what's going on in AI right now?
No, but I'll flip a question to you from the healthier tech. What is your take on AI and towards the health of humans in general?
Yeah, so that one's challenging, and we have another interview coming up with someone actually talking more about the big data side than the AI side, but still relevant to this and its applications on healthcare. And that is one that I am looking forward to, and probably would have a more intelligent answer for you at that point. But I'll say I do believe in the ability of things like AI to aid in diagnostics. I also see a lot of potential harm in terms of what you were talking about with the spread of misinformation, and just in general with and this isn't specific to AI, this is about sort of everything in tech. My feeling is that, with a few exceptions, we're moving too fast, that we value innovation more than we value the risks, even as so many of the risks from the prior generations of tech have become more obvious. And I feel that that is inevitably going to lead to forms of harm that we don't see today. But of course, I mean, it's going to lead to tremendous value being created, because that's what the speed of innovation fosters. And so it's not a simple kind of Manichaean sort of black or white topic. I just wish everybody would slow the heck down a little bit when it comes to the pace of innovation and technology.
Yeah, or just think about how which things suit your life and make you feel better, and which things are you utilizing that maybe don't make you feel as good. And I think AI, there's so many great applications, and there's always a risk. And there's always, from my perspective, it's, we're probably going to overutilize and then do a course correction. And I think that's what's happening with technology in general. And it's happened since we decided that that we need a round wheel. There's good and there's bad.
Did that come first, or sliced bread? So when are we going to know? And you said it's not going to be in our lifetimes, but what would be the dead giveaway that everyone agrees we've hit the singularity? Like what's the characteristic that tells us that definitively?
I think it'll be 30 years after we know it was there.
Okay.
just like the Blackbird flew for 20 some years before everyone knew that they had a stealth plane.
Mm-hmm.
The quantum computing or some form of it. Though I think our brains are pretty much quantum, because we could be yes, no, maybe on anything, right? Like, that's a com. That's I think that will be in power for a long time before that's actually been a thing, because all the encryption will be broken, everything will be out there. And so you're right about the speed, but then the singularity comes at some point when it just becomes normal. You're picking the sex of your baby, and I want this one to be 6'3" and brown hair, and the next one's going to be, we'll do this one too. Like that, there's already things that are happening. Like the singularity comes, like. Because I think one of the biggest differentiators, this might be a little too philosophical, but in evolution, right, species come and go, right? They do. Unfortunately, I think what probably will happen with humans, and this is hitting this on a downer, but money will be the differentiator. That those who will be able to afford advancements in technology and health and preventatives, where their lives will be longer, they'll build more generational wealth to those who cannot afford it. And then they'll have the technologies to be healthier, stronger, more resistant to disease, things like that, and more access. And then you'll have a singularity of people who are actually modified. And that will, if it's not happened already, in our country may or may not, we may not admit, but it's going to happen in others before ours probably. But when that happens, and you've actually made a split of who's the dominant kind of prolific species, and that's certainly a possibility. So if you answer your question, if that happens, that's when it's happened.
Wow. So you had the bleaker answer on the healthier tech perspective than I did.
Well, I mean, I just think, I mean, that's where we're going. Like you know,
no, I totally see. I totally agree.
Now I can get my cataracts with fixed lenses, and like it's whatever else. It's a bad thing. Those are really good things, but it's when it's applied for massive advantage.
Or I can afford 10 million for my telomere treatment that gets
right, or just a nation like the U.S. in particular. Like it's a very wealthy nation, lots of wealth, and when the wealthy nation generally can afford more tech, does it? I don't know. But then the flip side, I think. If all goes to shit, we get hit by a meteor, or at least we all start nuking each other. The people in the Amazon rainforest are probably the ones who'd be like, I'm not even sure there were people here, but I'm still here. Exact same thing.
We'll be like their version of Atlantis.
I guess we'll just go back to doing exactly what we were doing.
So this has been a great conversation, Thomas. Where would you like our listeners to go to learn more about you and your work?
I appreciate that. You can go to instantly.relevant.com. If you hit contact us or set up time, you'll actually get time with me. I still offer my time for people who'd like to learn and just hear about what they're doing in their companies and see what we can do for them. But I appreciate that. That's instantly.relevant.com. Yeah.
And if you go there, you'll see a group of people who are absolutely rocking it in front of a laptop screen. Like they are out of control.
You just want to know what's on that screen. Well, you can't know unless you come and talk.
Well, Thomas, this has been a wonderful conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time and coming on and allowing me to repay the favor by having you on the Healthier Tech podcast. I really appreciate you sharing your insight on artificial intelligence.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on. I do appreciate it.
Thanks for coming. It's been a great conversation. And I will say I was quiet and there was a lot going on there and a lot to think about. And, but I appreciate you giving me some more things to turn around in my brain. And it was a great conversation. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Healthier Tech podcast. Remember to check the show notes for all the links and resources mentioned in the show. Please like and subscribe to the Healthier Tech podcast on Apple, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice. Get your free quick start guide to building a healthier relationship with technology and our latest information at healthiertech.co.